If you're looking for a history lesson on a slice of the bloody, grungy, Dickinsonian New York City, right smack dab in the middle of the Civil War, well, then this movie is for you. If you're looking for entertainment, may I suggest that you grab a lawn chair, go out to the middle of your front yard, and watch the bees dance around the dandelions. That will be much more satisfying and entertaining for you. This is a preachy, meandering pastiche of pretentious stagecraft by Martin Scorcese. Yes, it is absolutely wretched. I'm going to do a quick 2-minute synopsis without plot spoilers of this bloody West Side story.
If you're a white in America,
if you want to call it. And then right after that, I'm going to do a deep dive with plot spoilers into this wretched piece of filmmaking. So here we go.
All the gin joints and...
You're busy living.
I watched sea beams.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Okay, my friends, so this is supposed to be a revenge drama in 1963 New York. And what's happened is that the badass sort of king of the neighborhood named Bill the Butcher has killed one of his rivals. And the rival's son sees the killing, and this is during a sort of gang fight. And then the son's young. Son goes off for 15, 16, 17 years. I'm not sure exactly how long it is. I think it's 15 years anyway. Comes back as a young man, and of course he wants revenge.
Come down. Let me put to rest my father's ghost.
And that's what you think this movie is going to be about. But it's not really about that. It's the director, Martin Scorsese, really wanting to show a bunch of the history around that time in New York. There's a very thin thread on the revenge, and it just doesn't work. You don't really like how it plays out. It's really boring. The pace is slow, and it goes more into the Civil War, into the Tammany Hall corruption, famous Tammany Hall corruption in New York City at that time.
Remember the first rule of politics. The ballots don't make the results. The counters make the results. The counters keep counting.
It goes into a lot of immigration, a lot of racism issues, draft riots, gang warfare, a really hokey romance.
I'll walk with you a little then.
It's just really badly done. And the staging on this, the scenes on this, just look really like something out of West Side Story. That this movie is too clean for what it's trying to get across. That Dickens type of London or New York, where it's dirty, nasty, trashy, the people are grungy, that kind of thing. The people in this are too clean. And the acting is about half of the acting is not very good. And that includes two of the main actors on this, Cameron Diaz and Leonardo DiCaprio. They are wooden, and they look like they were just plopped down in the middle of this movie. The only thing I can think of is that they just needed a couple of big stars to pull in the bucks. You know, who knows? But they're awful. There's some pretty good acting occasionally by Daniel Day-Lewis on this, although he is over the top several times. And but that's it. I mean, that's all I'm going to say without plot spoilers. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes, my friends. And it just goes pew, 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 this way and that way on all those subjects I talked about a while ago, because Martin Scorsese seems to be more interested in giving us a history lesson instead of giving us a story. So that's it. That's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to do a deep dive after this for people who've watched the movie and they want to have a little chat. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a one-sided chat. Or people who haven't watched the movie and they just want to hear me do plot spoilers and talk in depth about the movie. So let's do that now. Gangs of New York plot spoilers. Okay, my friends, this is the deep dive. So I always talk about my 8 categories of movie making. Hope you watched that little video I did on that on my site. And they are in front of you right now. The story, being the first one that I usually talk about, is a story of revenge. That's what this is ostensibly supposed to be. It's a thin thread in this movie, but there's 3 things you need for a revenge. This is the primary reason this movie doesn't work. Is that in order to have a revenge, you have to have those 3 things, and they are, you need a really bad guy as the person the revenge is going to be aimed at. But Bill the Butcher isn't really that bad of a guy by the code of the hood. He's got an honor system. He doesn't kill unless he thinks his opponent is worthy of being killed. He even stops himself from killing Valen.
He ain't earned the death! He ain't earned the death at my hands!
Amsterdam Valen. After he kills the priest at the beginning of the movie, he gives him the quick death after being requested to do so by the priest.
Soon be over, priest.
Finish it.
And then he orders everybody to not dismember the body.
But no hand shall touch him! No hand shall touch him!
And then he wishes him fond farewell in crossing the river, whole body intact. This, and he does many other things during the movie, giving out food to the people in the neighborhood. He's in charge of he's the godfather of the neighborhood, and he acts that way. This guy, whether you like it or not, he's a butcher, no doubt about it, but he's a noble butcher. You actually kind of like this guy. That's the way it's set up. That's the way the writer set this up. That's the way that Scorcese sets this up. So you don't have a nasty son of a bitch who deserves to die. Really, when it comes down to it. He keeps peace in the neighborhood through his dictatorship. You know, that's the way it worked. He's not even close to being a totally bad guy. So that's the first part of revenge. The second part of revenge is you need a very nasty, ignominious death. The person he kills, the way he does it, needs to be in such a way that the son, in this case, really wants to seek revenge. But it doesn't turn out that way, as I sort of alluded to a second ago. Not only does he respect him after death, but they have the rules about warfare. You say you're going to have a battle, a gang battle. Okay, we agree to that. Then you do it. You have your battle. One side wins, one side loses. And Bill does use a little trick to kill the priest, pushing that guy in front, but that's part of the battle. There are no rules when the knives and the swords and the hatchets begin getting thrown. There are no rules in battle. They go out the window. So that's perfectly fair that he does that. So the killing, in a sense, under the rules, is a noble killing. In fact, he's proud of it, putting the picture up, keeping the picture of the priest nearby, not just as a symbol of his conquest, but a symbol of his respect for the priest. And the priest, of course, had killed him earlier and let him live, shamefully let him live. And yet, that being the case, Bill does not cast shame on the preacher. He gives him the noble death. Yet again, his character. So you've got two things that don't work. The bad character is actually a good character. The bad death is actually a good death. So there is now no reason for revenge, really. Maybe for a young kid who just sees the death. But for a young man, that can no longer be the case. Especially when he walks in and when he finds out that Bill celebrates every year the death of the priest, celebrates the courage of the priest. So the third thing you need is the person seeking revenge has got to be a hero. It's got to be brave. It's got to be moral. You got to like him. And none of those things is Amsterdam in this movie. You don't like him. He's squeamish. He's a bit toadying. He cozens up to Bill. He doesn't act truly confident. I mean, even though he has that fight with the bald guy. Played by Gary Lewis McGloin. Yeah, I mean, okay, so he wins a fight. And he goes out and steals stuff off of his ship and steals that body, sells the body, etc., and gets in good with Bill. And you're wondering at this point in the movie, does Bill know who he is? He should know who he is. So that doesn't pass. But his character seems to be only confident around women, specifically around Jenny.
Maybe not. We're deep thinkers.
Gentlemen.
Jenny Everdeen, played by Cameron Diaz, played badly by Cameron Diaz. But so he's confident around women, but he doesn't seem to be confident around men, or especially around Bill. And he actually seems to sort of grudgingly respect Bill, or even respect him. Several scenes. And then, of course, he saves Bill's life.
For the blood of the Irish, Bill, get down!
Although he's squeamish about going through with killing the guy who shot at Bill. But, so you've got a guy who's supposed to be out for revenge, who isn't out for revenge, ostensibly. We get no hints that he's going to execute the revenge. And Bill keeps coming across as generally a decent guy. Yeah, I mean, everybody was corrupt back then, but the corruption was linked to power. Bill wanted the power to have a peace in the neighborhood. He was the peacemaker. The peacemaker has to throw a few bodies around occasionally. That's what they do. They're the godfather of the neighborhood. So if those are the rules, then he's not really that bad of a guy. So you don't have a bad guy, you don't have a bad killing, you don't have a hero seeking revenge, and this is supposed to be the thread on the movie. It just ain't working, folks. And then, to stay on this storyline for a little while longer, this makes the ending on this movie absolutely atrocious. Frankly, you don't want Amsterdam to kill Bill. Kill Bill. Quentin Tarantino's going to get on to me for that. You don't want him to. And the way that's set up, first of all, you don't believe that that Amsterdam is going to start a rival group, and you certainly don't believe, after his cowardice with Bill, trying to kill Bill, cowardly.
Saves my life one day so he can kill me the next like a sneak thief. instead of fighting like a man.
You certainly don't believe that anybody in that neighborhood is going to join forces with him against Bill. Just, it's unbelievable. But anyway, so they get a showdown. And the showdown, this is what Scorsese does to the showdown, interfering yet again with his history and everything else. We get cannon fire from a ship that comes in and throws the whole gang fight into a tizzy. People dying all around, and one of the cannonballs takes out or lands nearby to Amsterdam and Bill. Bill gets a shard in his side. This wounds him enough to where he's on his knees. So Amsterdam is not actually bravely taking out Bill yet again. So they're sitting in front of each other, and this is such a badly played scene. What would make us think that Bill is going to actually allow, because he could kill Amsterdam right there, easily kill him, but he doesn't. Why? There's no explanation. I deserve to die. Everything's over. The Civil War is intruding so much that I no longer could be kingmaker. I can no longer be the king, the godfather of the neighborhood. What? No. Bill's a survivor. I mean, he is not going to allow Amsterdam to kill him right there. And yet he does, seeing it happen. It's just so phony, so bogus. And we don't like Amsterdam. It's one of the worst endings on a movie I've ever experienced. There is just no justice. The justice, frankly, would be that he finally takes out Amsterdam and puts him out of his cowardly misery. You know, that's the way I wanted it at the end. Bill gets up with a wound in his side, looks down at Amsterdam, says, "Let me know in the afterlife if you ever decide to be a man." You know? The only way this movie could have worked is to create Bill as a bad guy, a truly bad guy, brutal with the priest, even at the end, treats him badly, treats the corpse badly, cuts off his ears, and we've got a nasty son of a bitch. You want him to die. You've got to want Bill to get his due. The son sees this, the son goes off to an orphanage, comes back 15 years later, and he's a badass. He's already got it planned out what he's going to do. He starts a small, tiny rival gang. Bill laughs at Amsterdam's attempt to make his gang into anything. The gang starts gaining a little bit of power, a little bit of credibility, starts getting a little bit tiny dangerous. Bill still laughs at them. The Tammany comes in, Tammany Hall. Amsterdam gets in with them, gets a little bit of political clout. More of the people in the neighborhoods see that happening. He gets actually now sort of ominous in power. So the Bill now has to handle him the way Bill handled the priest at the beginning of the movie, because the priest had gotten enough power where Bill had to take him down, Bill and his natives. So that would have been really interesting. And then Scorsese would have, if he wanted to include these historical elements, all he's got to do is find a way to interweave them in. And that could be done, you know, in a fascinating way, without the freaking voiceovers.
For every lay, we had a different name. An angler put a hook on the end of a stick to drop behind store windows and doors. An autumn diver picked your pocket in church.
If you've been watching my reactions, you've heard me say many times, you put voiceovers in a movie, you will not get a 10 popcorn out of 10 popcorn rating from me. It automatically goes down to 9. You lose a popcorn rating if you do the cheap voiceovers. Yeah, Scorsese does the voiceovers in this. And they're just, as always, wretched. So you could make it interesting that way and then interweave the historical elements into it. But Scorsese isn't interested in that. He's interested in making this a history lesson. And it doesn't work. There's no story, no thread. Nobody, truly, there is nobody in this movie you care about. As much as you like the sort of so-called nobility of Bill, you do sort of want this kind of person to die. But he is perhaps the most likable character in the movie. So, bad story, horrible story, bad characters, you don't like any of them. And because the story is so bad, there's no drama in this movie. Really, I mean, can you think of any real drama in this movie outside of that scene where Amsterdam tries to kill Bill? That's really the only true drama in this movie. And that's a well done scene, by the way. Scorsese does a fantastic job directing. The hatchet going up in the air.
Rib or chop, loin or shank.
That whole thing, phenomenal. Although Bill says he's going to deform Amsterdam.
No! He'll walk amongst you marked with shame. A freak worthy of Barnum's Museum of Wonders.
Yeah, but he doesn't. And I guess what? Scorsese's thinking, no, we've got Leonardo DiCaprio here with his beautiful face. We can't have Leonardo's face mauled so that he's unidentifiable. You know, that's what I was thinking in the movie. I'm like, where are the scars? You got that one tiny little burn scar, and now he's actually sort of pretty with a burn scar, and that's attracted to chicks, right? But he's not mauled. He got headbutted. Nasty headbutted. He got burnt. I mean, he should have crap all over his face. He doesn't. Man, I mean, seriously. And at least then, if that were the case, if he was no longer pretty, maybe he would have finally a reason to actually be revengeful. That could have been used. Scorsese doesn't use it. Keeps him looking pretty. It's just so sad, so bad. So there's no drama in this movie because the story's so bad, because you don't like the characters, because the story is meandering and pretentious and historical. We've got to be preached to about Tammany. We've got to be preached to about the immigrants.
Country right there, Mr. Cutting. Americans are borning.
I don't see no Americans. I see trespassers.
We've got to be preached to about the racism, draft riots, etc. Everything I said at the beginning. So the acting in this movie is, by the side characters, is generally good. I actually thought Liam Neeson probably did the best acting in this movie. And he was just on screen for what? 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. But Daniel Day-Lewis, I have a very difficult time deciding what I think about his acting performance in this. Sometimes I'm just utterly blown away, and other times I'm just thinking this is over the top. I mean, I think I heard somebody once say he looks like the cat in the hat. You know, it's like, the thing that kept coming into my mind was something that kept coming into my mind about this movie. The movie is too clean. For a blood and guts Dickinsonian movie, everybody and everything is just too clean. Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, even Bill, he just looks too clean. You know? Somebody who's in the trenches like that, you just think he had the oily hair, but it wasn't enough. It almost seemed pasted on. Just didn't seem grimy enough. This movie is not grimy enough, which I'll talk in a minute when I talk about the directing, about how the scenes are not grimy enough. But the acting, I don't know, Daniel, I just go back and forth on his performance. And maybe this is why he didn't get an Academy Award. It's almost like he's playing a caricature instead of a character. Caricature instead of a character. That's the way this comes across. And that just kept coming into my mind when I was watching this. I just couldn't quite get enveloped by him. He didn't seem real to me. Seemed like a caricature. Now the acting by Leonardo and Cameron is just bad. First of all, they can't continue an Irish accent. I mean, it's almost laughable.
Don't do that again.
Listen, I said don't do that. Go back to the points and leave me to my business, or I will open your throat, so help me God.
I mean, where is Scorcese when he's watching this? Why doesn't he say stop action and say get back into Irish character, Irish accent? Remember that, and they're just too clean. They look like a couple of affluent kids who were dropped down and into a Dickinsonian movie. I just never bought them. Cameron Diaz did not seem like a street urchin, you know, sort of maybe a tiny bit better than the other street urchins, but she came across as way above the other street urchins. Not just a turtle dove, you know. So it just didn't work with her. And Leonardo, it's just like he never, it could be the writing that made him such a bad character. You know? They waffle on the writing as to whether he's supposed to be getting revenge or being enamored by Bill, which is a real problem with this movie. So maybe that was his problem in the acting, because he just comes across as wooden. Almost as if there's just no personality there at all. So, unlike Bill, you know, like even when Bill's having a little talk with Amsterdam there in the room, Bill's got the American flag draped over his shoulder. I really like that touch. But he's having that little talk with him. And most of the time, Amsterdam's just got that blank look on his face.
He spared me because he wanted me to live in shame. This was a great man.
You know? Like this boy's just lost. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. But then he finally gets a little bit of fire. But Bill overplays it. But again, Bill's equanimity. Bill sees Amsterdam with Bill's concubine, Jenny, and Bill's fine with it. Again, you like this guy. He doesn't do the typical guy thing. There's so many times where Bill's character is just amazing in this movie. You like the guy. Yeah, you do want him to kill Amsterdam at the end. So the writing is just horrible on this. Just so, the voiceovers, the different scenes where they say things that you just wouldn't expect. The fact that Amsterdam's character is not given some sort of clear revenge aspect to it. The fact that Bill a lot of times starts explaining things that don't need to be explained.
Now everything you see belongs to me to one degree or another. The beggars and newsboys and quick thieves here in paradise, sailor dives and gym mills and blind tigers on the waterfront, the anglers and the muses, the she-he's and the chinks. Everybody owes, everybody pays, because that's how you stand up against the rising of the tide. Is that right, boys?
The fact that in that first big gang fight, you've got the gangs announcing themselves as they're approaching.
The O'Connell Guard! The Plumdugleys! The Sharptails! The Chichesters! The 40 Thieves!
Seriously? You know? And we're the Dead Rabbits, etc. I mean, it's just like, come on. That's for our sake. I mean, everybody in those gangs is going to know who's walking up. They don't need to announce themselves. What is this, a frickin' Broadway play? It's a joke. It's laughable. I mean, the first time I watched that, I'm like, come on, please, don't do that. This is the directing on this, and I'm going to get into that now. The directing on this. If I did not know that Scorsese did the directing on this, and somebody said, "Hey, here you go, Dax, watch this movie, Gangs of New York," I'd be like, after watching it, 2 hours and 45 minutes. After watching it, I'd be like, "Who do you think directed this, Dax?" Oh man, that's some 25-year-old post-grad student, history and filmography, with sort of an accent in American history. That's who did this. That's what it looks like. It's that bad. This movie's that bad. The directing on it is that bad. So pretentious. So all over the place. Even the sets. As I said at the very beginning, this looks like a bloody West Side Story. It looks like Broadway, in dirty New York. It's simply, the very beginning. You got the tunnels and everything else. Everything looks a little bit too clean in there. And then you've got that the focus in and then the panorama on different levels. Look how clean all the wood, how brand new all the wood looks on that. That looks like it was just built. I remember the first time watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, please, really? And then Scorsese lingers on it. After he backs up with that panorama, he lingers on it as if he's proud almost of the setup. When I'm cringing, I'm like, let's go to the next scene. That's too farcical. It's too made up. It's too hokey. And almost the whole movie is this way, over and over. That first fight between the priest and Bill and the gangs, the way that's done, the panorama back, and them trickling in groups. It looks like people coming onto a stage. It looks so hokey, so made up. Does it look cool, like a river of bodies coming in? Yeah, but that's not the way those kinds of fights happen. First of all, they're going to come in all scattered, and they're going to come in banging their metal against each other, against itself, making a shit ton of noise because the blood is pumping. This looks like a dance scene from West Side Story, the way it's set up. And then please, before I go into the please on that scene, one more scene I wanted to talk about is just a complete also setup was the dance scene. I mean, that's just fabricated. It doesn't make sense. But getting back to the please, directors need to stop doing bloody fight scenes, bloody battles. They're just rarely done well. Braveheart almost did it right. I really don't recall it ever being done right, but if you watch this one even moderately closely, it looks hokey. I just don't know if they can be done in the proper way without the camera just shooting back and forth so fast that you don't actually get to see the fight. And Scorsese tries that a little bit with this, but it just ends up being a bad fight scene. So, but getting back to the dance scene, what is the whole thing with that scene? It's supposed to be evidently where Jenny makes her decision on Amsterdam, but it's such a made up scene. Even when you're watching them, you're like, oh, the guy's going to pick one. Oh, well, it's going to be her. She's going to sit down. Oh, we know who she's going to pick. And then you're also wondering if Amsterdam wants to have nothing to do with her, why is he standing in line to be picked? You got a couple of dozen guys standing over to the side. Why doesn't he go stand with them? So it's a setup. And I'm sitting there watching, why is he standing in line? And of course she picks him. It's so predictable. It's so badly done. Oh my God, are you kidding me? It's so hokey. And then them dancing, he doesn't know how to dance. And then the camera shoots back again and gives us the full look. Again, you've got a clean scene in dirty New York. 5 points. You got, this whole movie is too clean. So yeah, so it goes, it tries to interject the whole class thing, whatever, and the race riots. And then during those scenes, you're wondering, are we ever going to get back to the actual thread on this movie? You know? So the writing, the directing, occasionally the directing is good, like in that scene with Amsterdam trying to kill Bill and Bill not killing Amsterdam. So that's pretty well done. And a few other scenes are done well on the actual cinematography, directing aspect of it. But overall, the director is supposed to be in charge of storyline, in charge of everything. Drama, pacing, everything else. And of course, the pacing on this, that's my 7th category. As usual, because there's no story, because there's no drama, well, when you linger on a scene, the pacing's going to slow. And so just over and over, you're like, okay, get on with it, will you? Getting back to Bill's character just for a moment to circle back around, the only time he does anything that's potentially bad is when he kills the monk, played well by Brendan Gleeson, throwing a hatchet into his back there. But even then, you know why he's doing it. You know, the monk has compromised and has joined the Tammany machine. So you get it. It's dastardly, yeah, but you do get it. So anyway, it's part of the rules of the game. Musical score on this, I didn't like the musical score. I mean, I didn't like the music during the fight, the battle scenes, the gang scenes. I thought it disturbed me. It's like you're playing rock music, sort of, to a bloody, nasty fight in 19th century America. It was like, it seemed so not just anachronistic, it just seemed wrong. Like I was almost supposed to enjoy the blood. And throughout, I'm not crazy about the musical score on this. I didn't pay attention many times, so I can't talk totally about it, but I don't recall it ever being something that impressed me. So that being the case, there is nothing in this movie that impressed me, seriously. I could almost say Daniel Day-Lewis's acting, but as many times as it impressed me, truly impressed me, other times I was sort of put off by the almost sort of caricature melodrama aspect of his playing, you know, and the tapping of his eye, and it just little things that seem to be added on to give more authenticity to his badassery. Okay, so I think that's it. I'm not sure there's anything else I really want to say, except that I'm perplexed, really, by all of the award nominations, by most critics giving this anywhere from top rating to near top rating. I'm not really sure what's up with that. Maybe it's the Scorcese name being attached to this. Who knows? But this is truly an atrociously done, amateur, sophomoric movie that Scorsese simply just couldn't figure out what he was going to do with. So he creates these fabulous scenes, creates a history, background, and forgets to tell us a story that is truly enervating and compelling. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to give 2 popcorns out of 10. And I think that really mainly is simply going to be for the acting by Liam Neeson, Brendan Gleeson, Daniel Day-Lewis, and John C. Reilly, who played Happy Jack. So their acting is the only reason I'm going to give this 2 popcorns. And that's unfortunate because I could tell so much work was put into this movie. But anyway, y'all let me know what you think. And I'll look forward to those comments very much. Y'all take care now. Bye.